When your safety net is yourself, the untold truth behind Black women's entrepreneurship. Welcome to Soft Girl Era, the sacred space where strong Black women unlearn survival, rediscover softness, and reclaim the joy, rest, and freedom they deserve without guilt, without apology, and without explanation. I'm your host, Leanne Dolce, pronounced Dolce, like sweet softness whispered in French, and I'm your guide from burnout to boundaries, from doing to being, from strong to soft, and loving every second of it. Today, I had the profound honor of sitting down with Siobhan Hauser Long, a visionary leader, advocate, and truth teller who is reshaping the narrative around Black women's resilience, entrepreneurship, and economic justice. Siobhan's work is not just about empowering women, it's about dismantling the systems that have forced us to become our own safety nets. They are on the front lines, challenging policies, amplifying silenced voices, and demanding that the world stop celebrating our survival and start addressing the injustice that makes survival necessary. What they shared with me, what they've uncovered through their research and advocacy, is something that will challenge everything you thought you knew about Black women in entrepreneurship. So, let me ask you this. When you hear the phrase Black women entrepreneurs, what comes to mind? Maybe you think of bold, fearless women launching businesses, chasing dreams, building empires. You might imagine someone who woke up one day inspired, energized, ready to take on the world. You might think of independence, ambition, freedom. You might picture the Instagram posts, the hashtags, the celebrations of Black girl magic and boss moves. But here's the truth Siobhan shared with me, and it's a truth that will shake you. The recent surge in Black women's entrepreneurship, the one everyone's celebrating, the one being held up as a symbol of empowerment, is not primarily driven by inspiration or a desire for independence. It's driven by necessity, by mass layoffs, by persistent pay inequities, by systemic barriers that have stripped away stability and forced many of us to create our own opportunities, not because we wanted to, but because we had no other choice. Most people assume entrepreneurship is a choice made from a position of strength. But for many Black women, it's a last resort to regain control over their financial futures. And that is the counterintuitive truth we need to sit with today. Let me take you into the data because numbers don't lie, even when systems do. The California Black Women's Collective Empowerment Institute documented the experiences of more than 300,000 Black women who were laid off or pushed out of the workforce in 2025. 300,000. Let that number sit with you for a moment. 300,000 Black women. These weren't women who lacked qualifications. These weren't women who weren't showing up. These were women in government, tech, healthcare, education, women who have been holding it down, leading teams, advancing missions, doing the work. And they were still pushed out. Here's what they were facing. Black women earning $54,000 a year while white men in similar roles earn 90,000. 60% of these women reported experiencing workplace discrimination in the past year. Only 21% saw strong opportunities for advancement. And when the layoffs came, when the budget cuts rolled through, when the so called restructuring happened, guess who was first to go? So, what did they do? 59% started the businesses or freelance work. 52% switched industries entirely. 30% went back to school or retrained for new careers. This wasn't a pivot born out of passion. This was survival. This was women looking at a system that had failed them and saying, fine, I'll build my own table. And we call this empowerment. We celebrate it. We post about it on social media. We share the quotes. We applaud the hustle. But let's be honest, this is not the entrepreneurship story we should be celebrating. This is a story of systemic failure. This is a story of women being forced to become their own safety nets because the structures that were supposed to support them protect them, pay them fairly, advance them equitably, those structures collapsed. Or worse, those structures were never built for us in the first place. Now, let me introduce you to Fajani Cadet. Fajani is a highly educated Black professional, a former director of diversity and inclusion. She was doing the work, the real work, advancing equity, creating pathways, opening doors. She was the kind of leader organizations claim they want. She had the credentials, the experience, the passion, the results. And then she was laid off. Not because she wasn't good at her job, not because the work wasn't needed, but because corporations across the country began retreating from DEI initiatives, dismantling the very programs designed to address the inequities that Black women like Fajani were fighting against. Fajani's layoff was part of that wave, that crisis, where over 300,000 Black women left the workforce between February and April of 2025. And when I say left, I don't mean they chose to leave. They were pushed, they were erased. They were told in so many words that their labor, their expertise, their leadership was expendable. Fajani faced anxiety about her future, financial instability, the emotional toll of being pushed out of a field where she was working to advance equity. Imagine that. You spend your career fighting for fairness, and the system responds by showing you the door. But here's what she did: she engaged in community support, she networked, she built her skills, she searched for new opportunities, she didn't give up. She didn't shrink. She adapted. She persisted. And that resilience, that resourcefulness, that's what Siobhan wants us to see, not as a badge of honor we should have to earn, but as a survival skill we've been forced to master. And Fajani's story is not unique. Let me tell you about Penny Houston. Penny has multiple advanced degrees. She had a 25-year career. She was qualified, experienced, respected, and then she was laid off. And for over a year, she struggled to find new employment. She applied to over 100 jobs. 100. Think about that. 100 applications. 100 times she had to sell herself, prove herself, justify her worth. 100 times she had to sit with the rejection, the silence, the closed doors. Penny sold personal assets. She drew on her retirement funds. She participated in resume workshops and community job fairs tailored specifically for Black women. She did everything right. She followed every piece of advice. She networked. She polished her resume. She practiced her interview answers. And still, the door stayed closed. Penny's unemployment was part of a larger trend. Black women's unemployment spiked to nearly 7% nationally, far above the general rate. And these weren't women who lacked education or experience. These were women like Penny, like Fajani, like the 300,000 documented by the California Black Women's Collective. Women who had been doing the work, holding it down, showing up next, and still being told they weren't enough. But here's what Penny did: she became a visible advocate. She shared her story. She inspired others. She pushed for policy change. She refused to let her struggle be invisible. And that is the power Siobhan wants us to recognize. Not the power to survive because we've been surviving, but the power to transform survival into something sacred, something that supports others, something that demands systemic change. So let's talk about what this all means. Because the insights Siobhan shared with me, the research they've uncovered, the stories they've amplified, they all point to three critical truths we need to carry with us. First, systemic inequities, not individual shortcomings, are at the root of the challenges Black women face in the workforce and entrepreneurship. Discrimination, wage gaps, bias in hiring and advancement, these are structural, not personal failings. When Fajani was laid off, it wasn't because she wasn't good enough. When Penny couldn't find work, it wasn't because she wasn't qualified. When 300,000 Black women were pushed out, it wasn't because they weren't showing up. It was because the system is broken. And until we name that, until we confront that, we will keep celebrating resilience while ignoring the injustice that makes resilience necessary. We will keep posting inspirational quotes about Black girl magic while Black women are draining their retirement accounts just to survive. We will keep applauding the hustle while refusing to ask why the hustle is required in the first place. We will keep celebrating entrepreneurship while ignoring that for so many of us, it wasn't a dream, it was the only option left. Second, resilience and resourcefulness are defining traits of Black women's professional journeys, but the need to pivot to entrepreneurship is often a response to exclusion, not just ambition. We are not starting businesses because we woke up inspired. We are starting businesses because we were locked out. We are freelancing because we were laid off. We are retraining because the industries we built our careers in decided we were disposable. And yes, we are resilient. Yes, we are resourceful, but let's not romanticize survival. Let's not call forced pivots empowerment. Let's call it what it is, a response to systemic failure. When a woman has to sell her belongings to pay her bills while she searches for work, that's not empowerment. When a woman has to tap into her retirement savings because no one will hire her despite her qualifications, that's not a success story. When a woman starts a business not because she's passionate about entrepreneurship, but because she's been rejected from 100 jobs, that's not inspiration. That's desperation dressed up in business casual. Third, community, faith, and networks are crucial for survival and success. Black women consistently lean on these supports to navigate uncertainty, retrain, and rebuild after setbacks. Fajani leaned on her community. Penny participated in job fairs and workshops designed for Black women. The 300,000 women documented by the California Black Women's Collective, they didn't do it alone. They leaned on each other, they shared resources, they prayed, they networked, they held each other up. And that is the foundation of our soft girl era. Not isolation, not individualism, but community, connection, faith, the understanding that we are stronger together, that we don't have to carry the weight alone, that softness is not weakness. It's the courage to ask for help, to rest, to trust that we are held. Because here's what they won't tell you: the system is designed to isolate us, it's designed to make us believe that our struggles are individual, that our failures are personal, that if we just worked harder, hustled smarter, showed up better, we'd make it. But that's a lie. The struggle is structural, the barriers are systemic, and the only way we survive is together. So here's where we are: we are at a crossroads. We can continue to celebrate Black women's entrepreneurship without interrogating why so many of us are being forced into it. We can continue to applaud resilience without addressing the systems that make resilience a requirement for survival. Or we can do something different. We can demand better. We can dismantle the barriers. We can create workplaces where Black women are paid fairly, advanced equitably, and valued fully. We can build economies where entrepreneurship is a choice, not a last resort. We can create a world where Black women don't have to be strong all the time, where softness is not a luxury, but a birthright. And that brings me to my final question for you. Not the question Siobhan left me with, but the question I'm leaving you with today. The question that should keep you up at night. The question that should change how you show up tomorrow. What will you do? Will you advocate for pay equity in your organization? Will you mentor a Black woman navigating unemployment? Will you challenge bias in hiring and advancement? Will you support Black women owned businesses, not just with your dollars, but with your networks, your platforms, your influence? Will you create space for Black women to rest, to heal, to be soft, without judgment, without expectation, without the demand that we prove our worth through constant productivity? Or will you keep scrolling past the statistics? Will you keep celebrating the entrepreneurship without questioning the systems that forced it? Will you keep applauding the resilience without addressing the injustice? Will you keep benefiting from structures that were never designed to support us? While we continue to build our own tables from the scraps you left behind. Because here's the truth: the soft girl era is not just about us learning to be soft, it's about the world learning to hold us gently. It's about systems shifting so that we don't have to fight for every inch of ground. It's about communities rising up to say, "We see you, we value you. You don't have to do this alone." Siobhan Hauser Long is doing that work. They are dismantling barriers, they are amplifying voices, they are demanding systemic change, and they are reminding us that our resilience, while powerful, should not be the price of our survival. So I'm asking you today, what will you do? How will you show up? How will you use your voice, your influence, your power to ensure that the next generation of Black women doesn't have to choose entrepreneurship out of desperation? How will you help us build a world where softness is not a rebellion but a reality? How will you dismantle the systems that force us to become our own safety nets? How will you create the structures that should have been there all along? The answer to that question, that's what will define whether we continue to celebrate survival or finally commit to justice. Thank you